Okay. Guess we're jumping right into it. I think so. Good evening, guys, girls, and anything in between. Hi, Chidorin. Hi, Bear. How's it going? What was the argument? Where were we? If Patricia was the culprit without a master key, do we have to accept the argument that she really is a witch and locked the door with the power of magic? Are you good at wolves and sheep puzzles? I don't know what kind of puzzles those are. What does that mean? Alright.
何を悩む？わらわのせいにしてしまえ。19人目の謎の来客のせいにすればよいではないか。そうすれば人間どもの醜い押し付け合いを見ずに済むぞ。
つまりなんだよ。犯人は19人目の来客ベアトリーチェ。こいつは魔女だからマスターキーがなくても魔法で施錠できたと。そいつを認めろってのかよ。ふざけるなふざけるなふざけるな
前回のゲームでお前の弱点は知り尽くしているぞ。さあどうするどうする？お前はわらわを絶対に認めないのだったな。ならカノンというちょうどいい生贄を使えばよい。カノンがジェシカを殺した。ローザの説を支持すればこの場は丸く収まるぞ。カノンはもう死んでいるのだ。死者に気遣う必要などあるまい。
Hey, Zekta.
そしてこの場にいる誰も疑わずに済む。
Well, if he's the murderer, but he's now dead, then who murdered him? Ain't that the question? If we were to go down that route.
お前を認めたりはしない。でもカノン君が犯人だなんてそんなことはありえない。
私は誰も疑いたくはありません。しかし疑わしきは黒ということもあるにはあります。とにかく用心するに越したことはないでしょうな。
南條先生、それはどういう意味ですか？
勘違いしないでください。私はカノンさんを犯人だと決めつけたいわけじゃない。しかし事情がわかるまでカノンさんが犯人の可能性もあると、そう思っておいた方が安全だというのです。
Yeah, definitely it's Kumasawa. She's the brain of the operation.
そうですわね。用心はしてしすぎることはありませんもの。
It didn't seem as though anyone blamed Nanjo. In reality, no one thought that Kanon was the culprit. But if they didn't suspect him, they would have to suspect one of the servants here. We didn't want to do that. I mean, if you have the feeling that he's not it, but to feel safer, you decide to lean into the possibility that he is it. Doesn't that mean that if you judge by your initial feeling that he is not the culprit, there is another culprit who you are ignoring because now you're focusing on Kanon? Like, not another culprit, but like another person who has potential to be the culprit, but because you know what I mean? It's a bit twisted in my mind. I don't know. We didn't want to do that. We didn't want to suspect. We didn't want to be suspected.
それで正解よ。警戒してしすぎるということはない。
Well, that also applies about being suspicious of other people too.
それについて異論はないわね。いい？この殺人事件には お父様の黄金伝説が関わっている可能性がとても高い。だとすれば数百億円の莫大な黄金を独り占めしようと企む何者かの犯行に違いない。それだけのお金が手に入ればどこの国でも生涯遊んで暮らせるわ。そのためなら私たちを皆殺しにすることだってあるかもしれない。マスターキーを持っていないという理由でジェシカちゃん殺しについてだけは19人目の来客ベアトリーチェを容疑者から外した。でも事件に関わってないとは言えないわ。何しろ莫大な黄金ですもの。犯人は複数人いる可能性だって否定できない。今この瞬間この中に犯人に買収されている人間が混じっているかもしれない。
As Auntie Rosa yelled, she looked all around, her gun still raised. Don't believe anyone, suspect the person next to you. That's what she was saying. But no one wanted to suspect. They didn't want to suspect anyone here. That weakness in their hearts demanded an answer from those not here.
容疑者でないと信じることができるのは2つしかない。自分自身と、そして死体になったものだけよ。それはカノン君も同じ。死体が見つからない限り彼はジェシカちゃん殺しの最有力容疑者なのよ。だから用心して。もし生きてたとしても何かの理由を取り繕っても絶対に信用しちゃダメよ。いいわね。
Ay ay ay, no one gave an answer of their own initiative. However, those who met Auntie Rosa's eyes had to nod their heads. Humans are social beings. In other words, from the time they are born, trusting each other is imprinted in their genes. It is unpleasant to go against that. They definitely don't want to suspect anyone. But if they had to suspect someone, they thought that choosing one of the people not here right now would be the most acceptable. Ay, the weakness of being human. For just the reason of acceptability, they had passively chosen to sacrifice Kanon. What good does that do for anyone? In any direction. This is ridiculous. I definitely don't want to believe that Kanon-kun is the culprit. I'd only just heard from George Aniki, but not only were those two close in age, they also had that adolescent relationship Auntie Rosa had mentioned. It may be a little late now, but yes, they really did have that kind of air about them. After seeing her parents' tragic bodies, Jessica, bearing deep wounds in her heart, would only have trusted Kanon-kun. That's a very conceivable story. So I don't like it. Kanon-kun was the only one she trusted, so she wouldn't have let anyone but Kanon-kun in. So he was the only one who could have killed Jessica. I just can't accept that line of argument.
わかった。カノン君がもし現れても油断しないで。カノン君の無実を証明できない限り、私たちはジェシカちゃん殺しの犯人をカノン君だと仮定します。
Auntie Rosa made that claim by using the ever so slightly vague word suppose. Ultimately, she gave everyone that last little push they needed. Everyone nodded weakly, and under the excuse that they were just temporarily supposing it, they concluded that Kanon was the culprit who had killed Jessica. I wonder what dead Jessica and Kanon would think if they could hear this exchange. Jessica was crying. She was crying in the chest of the person who had put his life on the line to fight for her. Kanon. It was frustrating. So frustrating that it felt like her chest would explode. She grieved and resented how far the dignity of the dead had been trampled.
あいつら、なんでカノン君のことを犯人扱いするんだよ。
死体がないからです。
死体がないとなんで犯人扱いなんだよ。カノン君は私のために命がけで戦ってくれたんだぜ。それであの魔女に戯れに下着を消されて、それで犯人はカノン君だなんて、ひどいぜ。ひどすぎる。
いいんです。結局守りきれなかったけれど、最後にお嬢様のお役に立てたのですから。
そ ってくれないんだよ。やめろ、ローザおばさん。そんなめちゃくちゃな推理でカノン君を犯人だなんて決めつけるな。
犯人だとは言ってません。疑わしいと。いえ、用心しようと。そういう話ですから。
言ってるよ。こいつらはカノン君が犯人だということにしてきっと思考を停止する。もう私を殺した犯人が誰かなんて考えないよ。カノン君が犯人でない可能性なんて考えないよ。
Yep, basically what I was saying earlier.
そしてこの後も何かあるたびに行方不明のカノン君の仕業にして言い訳を繰り返す。私はそんなの耐えられないよ。
いいんです。お嬢様だけは真実を知っています。
私だけが知ってたって意味がないんだよ。死んで分かった。真実ってのは生きてる人間のものだ。真実が残らなかったら死者は報われない。何のためにカノン君が命を懸けたのか分かんなくなっちゃう。
実に愉快な見物よ。死者の嘆きほど甘い蜜も珍しい。嘆け嘆け。そなたがいくら嘆こうとも、死者の声は決して聖者には届かぬ。
畜生、畜生。誰でもいい。私の声を聞いてくれ。カノン君は犯人なんかじゃない。カノン君は死体を消されただけなんだ。どうしてそれがわかんないんだよ。
How does that fit with everything, though? Because I still I don't understand what the actual scene that we saw means in terms of where does it fit within the realm or in between the realm of reality and fantasy. Where does that stand and how does that connect with everything? And yeah, I have so many other questions about other things that we saw that I don't know how to piece together, or again what they mean, or if even they have any deeper meaning. Maybe I'm looking into them too much. Yeah.
お嬢様。
こんなの嫌だ。悲しい。悔しい。これじゃカノン君は殺されそうじゃないか。死者の名誉は聖者が認めなきゃ得られないんだ。誰でもいい。気づいてくれよ。お願いだよ。カノン君は犯人じゃない。ああ、行くなよみんな。頼むからそのままで終わりにしないで。
I gotta respect Jessica's passion. Even in the afterlife, she is really adamant about the things that she cares about.
行かないで。
Aww. Rosa proclaimed that this room should be sealed until the police came. The rest didn't want to suspect each other, so they happily accepted that. They accepted Kanon as the tentative culprit. Without even imagining how much disgrace that gave to the dead, they accepted it.
お嬢様。もういいんです。ありがとう。
行くなよみんな。交渉だよ。戻ってくれ。このまま私たちを残さないで。カノン君を犯人扱いのままにしないで。
Oh, my heart.
届かぬわ。
I really don't want to hear you.
死者の嘆きは決して届かぬ。笑わせる。笑わせるぞ、お前のその顔。届くと思ってるだろう。届かないんだよ、ジェシカ。
全然ダメだな。
Thank you, Butler. Please take it away. Thank you. I have never heard words that infuse my soul with more hope than these. Let's go. Yes, please. 全然ダメだ。え？
バトラ君、何か言った？
ああ、ダメだ。全然ダメだな。
At the time, everyone made to leave the room. Only Battler had his back to them, and he was still looking down at Jessica's body.
全然ダメって、どういうこと？何か異論でもあるの？
警戒しようって話にだけは賛成する。だがカノン君が犯人ってことにしようって話は悪いが拒否させてもらう。
ほう、ここで食いついてくるとは。カノンが犯人ではなく、しかもわらわの仕業でもないならば、このジェシカの部屋の密室をどう説明する？
実を言うとそれについてはお手上げだ。まったく俺はどうして全然ダメだなんて言っちまったんだ。自分の言動には責任を持たねえとな。理論武装ゼロの都市空間だがな、俺はこれ以上指を加えてないぜ、ベアトリーチェ。
バトラ様。
カノン君が犯人ではないという証拠でもあるのかい？
George's voice sounds like he's latching at it with hope, like, oh, have you found anything? The expression that rose to those two faces was definitely expectant, yeah. They didn't want to believe that Kanon was the culprit. In truth, they believed in Kanon. So this expectation was because they wanted to be made to believe in him even more strongly. What chapter is this? It is 2. Hello. Also, thank you for answering Lord Wu. Yes, that's where we are.
なら、バトラ君は他の使用人の誰を疑うの？
Yes, I love this track. It came at the right time and it really resonates with the hopeful feeling and the uplifting of like, hey, this is not a dead end. It's just a hurdle and we can jump over it. I like it.
郷田さん？それとも熊沢さん？
よせよ、ローザおばさん。俺は熊沢のばあちゃんという人をよく知ってる。たまに仕事をサボってたりするが、いつだって人を楽しくさせようとする人だ。たとえ金に目がくらんだとしても殺しだけはする人じゃねえ。
うわ、バトラーさん。
そして郷田さんとは俺は昨日会ったばかりだ。正直この人のことはまだよく理解していない。
Alright, looking forward to it then. That's very nice.
だが分かったことがある。
私は
こんなに楽しそうに飯を作る人を俺は見たことがない。同じなんだよ。熊沢のばあちゃんと同じだ。郷田さんは人を喜ばせるのが好きな人なんだ。そんな人が自分の飯をうまいと褒めてくれた人、たとえ金を積まれたって殺すもんか。
Oh, that's precious.
なら、バトラ君は誰がジェシカちゃんを殺したというの？マスターキーでしか施錠できないこの部屋に誰がジェシカちゃんを閉じ込めたというの？
待ちな。それを論じる前に俺ははっきりさせておく。誰々が犯人でないなら誰々が犯人という話がしたいんじゃない。
Oh yes, voice acting is absolutely stellar.
俺は単にカノン君が犯人だということは断じてありえない
Yeah.
という話がしてだけなんだ。
This whole thing like, oh, if it wasn't A, then prove who else it was. That doesn't necessarily have to be the way to go about it.
犯人がカノンではないということを立証できるというのだな。どうやって？
Because I feel like everyone is approaching it from a perspective of we're accusing this person, right? And if he cannot conclusively prove that someone else, very specific someone else, did it, then the suspicions cast on the other person are valid, which you can negate those suspicions without having a proof of someone else, right? That's also possible. Ah. Okay, let's see where Battler goes with it.
実に簡単なことさ。危うく見落とすところだったぜ。ベアト。副将要求。言えるもんなら言ってみろ。カノン君はマスターキーを持っていた。
ほう。
カノン君がマスターキーを持っていない？どうしてそんなことがわかるの？
さっき俺はゴーダさんに話を聞いた。カノン君と別れる直前、ジェシカが貴賓室に殴り込みに行ったってあたりの話だ。ゴーダさん、あんたはちゃんと覚えてたよ。あんたはカノン君の名誉を守った。
私がです。同じ話は僕も聞いてたよ。でも僕にはよくわからなかった。説明してくれるかい、バトラ君。
そうさ、ジェシカは貴賓室の鍵を開けるとき、カノン君に鍵を借りたが返さなかった。
I actually don't remember what happened with the key, or if it was even specified to keep track of what had happened to that key.
だからカノン君はマスターキーを持っていないんだ。
それはどうかな。確かにゴーダの記憶上ではマスターキーをカノンに返してはいない。しかしゴーダが見ていないところで返したかもしれない。それが絶対になかったとどう証明する？カノンの死体のポケットを調べればそれは立証できるだろうが、それはできない。証明は不可能だ。
全然ダメだな。実に簡単なことじゃねえか。
そんな、それじゃあカノン君は鍵を持ってなかったというの？
ああ、そしてその証拠はジェシカを調べればわかるはずだ。ジェシカのポケットにカノン君のマスターキーが入ってるはず。南條先生、調べてくれるか？
Nanjo dashed up to Jessica and searched in her jacket pocket. Everyone hoped for it. Oh god. I don't think it's gonna be that easy. Please, be there.
ありましたぞ。これですかな。
はい。それがマスターキーです。間違いありません。
At Genji's statement, there was a small O of joyful voices.
それがカノン君のマスターキーだ。もう一度言うぜ。カノン君はマスターキーを持っていない。だから施錠できたわけがないんだ。
確かにそのようね。でもカノン君がジェシカちゃんに会った最後の人物なのよ。疑わしいことに変わりはないわ。
予想ぜ、そういうの。人間ってのは本来信じ合う生き物のはずだ。なのに世知辛い世の中を生きるために疑り深さを覚えちまう。
That makes me think quite a bit that we're naturally inclined to just trust each other. It makes me think of children and how quote-unquote gullible they are. It's their default state to believe what they're told, or to just assume that anyone is friendly and good. Aww. It makes me sad in a way that the world it is indeed tough and you have to learn to suspect one another. Yum.
だから何でも疑っちまう。俺たちは悲しい生き物だな。
Yeah, I know, right, Butler? We're so sad.
その差がを俺は否定しねえ。だが 証拠なき断定だけは許さない。疑わしきは黒じゃねえ、白だ。もちろん世の中は狼だらけさ。人を不用心に全て信じろとは言わねえ。だが黒だと断定するならば完全な証拠を用意しろ。それができない限り絶対に憶測で人を黒だなんて言うんじゃねえ。
それは
疑わしきは黒は私の発言ですな。軽率でした。謝ります。
Yes and no. Like what Butler is saying, that is the principle on which justice is built. Like you have to presume that someone is innocent and then have to gather proof to show that they're guilty of whatever you are trying to accuse them. Like they don't have to prove that they're innocent, you have to prove that they're guilty. But in a situation like this, when it's a matter of life or death, when you're completely secluded from the world, and when there's a rampaging murderer possibly among the group of you that is very quickly dwindling in live numbers, do you have the luxury of that in terms of fully accepting or fully going for the assumption of innocence for absolutely everyone? Everyone's like, oh, as long as I don't have a proof that you did it, I will believe you and I believe you're innocent. Like, maybe in this kind of situation, it is a bit of a luxury in terms of keeping yourself safe, so that you would have to be not necessarily accusing people flat out 100% you did it, but just generally employing caution and being wary of the situations that you put yourself in. I can understand that part a little bit. I can empathize with it. 7 people are killed and Kanon is missing. Battler, we should trust each other. I know, right? So I totally understand where Battler is coming from. Like the principle, the ideal. But also we're in a very concrete situation with some very concrete awful things happening, and we are locked or blocked on this island all together in a very confined space with lots of people who could have potentially done it. Like, a little bit of wariness is in order, I believe. Just for the sake of, you know, self-preservation instinct, I suppose.
バトラ様。
見事な推理だよ、バトラ君。ゴーダさんもありがとう。あなたが覚えていてくれたから、カノン君の疑いが晴らせました。
いや。
I mean, the constant switches between the scene and the meta, and then back to the scene and back to... golden sneer, there it is. Clap, clap, clap. It was the dry sound of the witch's applause.
お見事、お見事。なかなかやるではないか。
やべえな。まんまと餌駒に引っかかっちまったか。
そなたは見事。カノンにだけはこの部屋の扉を施錠できなかったことを証明した。使用人は全員マスターキーを持つはず。それが根拠となり、カノンが犯人扱いとなっていたのだから、少なくともその疑いは見事に晴らせたな。
となると、ジェシカを殺した犯人は、どうやって扉を施錠したのか。そういう問題になっちまうわけだな。まんまと思い通りの展開に引き込まれちまったぜ。
かかったな。しかもそなたは他の使用人たちを誰も疑わないなどと大それたことを言ってしまった。さーて、どう言い作ろうのか見ものよ。
うるせえぜ。早速始めるぞ。どうせがっつり否定されちまうんだろうが、先にこの部屋が密室であることの定義を確認させてもらうぜ。
よかろう。まず隠し扉の類は一切ない。
Okay, no hidden doors.
出入りはこの扉からだけだ。
I guess unless you count the windows, which this may be on a higher floor, right? Okay.
扉の施錠はジェシカの鍵が1本と使用人たちが1本ずつ持つマスターキーのみ。2階ではあるが 窓から出入りすることも可能だろう。しかし窓は内側から施錠されている。
いきなりチェス盤をひっくり返させてもらうぜ。
Flip it.
多分扉がどうこう施錠がどうこうって論法から入るのはお前の手のひらから出ない。
Very true.
好きにするがよい。さてさて、何を復唱すればよいのやら。
復唱要求。カノン君はこの部屋で殺された。
うん。カノンはこの部屋で殺された。
Okay. But this is one thing that confuses me. They are working with extra information compared to the actual players in the story. Because to them, Kanon is just missing. It cannot be confirmed that he's actually dead. But between Beato and Meta Battler, whatever we call him, they are also working with the information of Kanon being already dead. Which I feel like adds an extra piece of information that the others don't have.
死体はわらわが魔法で消したがね。
続けて復唱要求。カノン君の死体はこの部屋にある。
拒否する。復唱はできぬ。なぜなら死体はわらわが魔法で消したからだ。
そりゃ言わねえよな。そこにどうせ秘密があるに決まってるんだ。くそ、謎の論点はどこなんだ。マスターキーもなく施錠したことなのか。施錠された室内にいる二人をどうやって殺したかなのか。
It's alright, Seku.
それとも二人を殺しどうやって脱出したかなのか。悔しいが外堀から埋めてくしかないぜ。復唱要求。最後の施錠はマスターキーによるものである。
これも拒否する。
その拒否ってやつがどうも曖昧だな。復唱不能だから拒否なのか、本当は復唱できるのにわざと拒否してるのかがわからねえ。
礼拝堂の鍵の時はそなたにすっかり逆手に取られてしまった。わらわが有利なうちはわざわざリスクのある赤を使って発言する必要がない。ただそれだけのことよ。
そうなんだよな。本来赤ってのは俺の陳説をあんたが封じるときに使うもんだったんだよな。
わらわが有利になるように使うのは当然のこと。上げ足を取られるリスクが分かっている以上無駄には使わぬ。さて次はどういう手で来る？ゴーダや熊沢を疑う手がおそらく一番使いやすいぞ。
くそ、誘導されているようでムカつくぜ。しばらく黙ってろ。考える。
もちろんこの扉は礼拝堂の時と同じだ。施錠時にはいかなる方法をもってしても出入りはできぬ。さらに言うと部屋の外から鍵を使わずに施錠するようなからくりも通用せぬぞ。
From the outside. There's just like a bunch of things in here that I don't know what they're supposed to mean. Because in a way, just the idea of saying that no trick could have the effect of locking the door without using the key, I feel like she is denying magic again in a way. Like there's a subtext of that implied somehow. When you say that it absolutely cannot be done with anything but a key, that includes magic, doesn't it? I don't know, that's where my mind would go. But then, here she adds the twist of like, from the outside. Meaning what? Meaning that from the inside there's something different about it? Yeah, okay.
頼まれてねえ時にばかり赤を乱発しやがって。
Let's back up. Let me just think. I'll lay out everything I know. First, there are two victims. Jessica and Kanon-kun. Kanon-kun's corpse isn't here, but Beatrice admitted in red that Kanon-kun was killed. So even without a corpse, he is included as a victim. There are a few questionable points, and depending on which I focus on, my line of thought changes a lot. First, after the culprit committed murder in this room, how did they lock it? If we assume that the culprit was one of those holding a master key, it's extremely simple. But I want to avoid that if I can, because I would have to suspect Goda-san or Kumasawa-san, no, in the worst case even Shannon-chan and Genji-san. At this point, I noticed something. I'm contradicting myself. I'm cutting my own throat. I want to deny Beatrice no matter what. I want to erase the existence of that brutal, fickle, ridiculous witch. In order to do that, I have to explain everything with humans, not magic. But that also means suspecting some human. I don't want to suspect someone. Of course, if there was some clear proof, I would have to believe that person was the culprit, but as long as that didn't happen, I didn't want to cast any suspicions. Am I just green? Am I just a kid who doesn't want to have my feelings, which tell me that at least this person or that person couldn't be a murderer, betrayed? I want to deny that it was a witch. I also want to deny that it was a human. Now I don't know what is what anymore.
そもそもそなたとわらわのゲームは、わらわの存在を否定できるかどうかだけが勝利の条件だった。それだけでもそなたに不利なゲームなのに、そなたは勝手に勝利条件を増やし、自ら勝利を困難なものとしてしまっている。
It's just as she says. If I started arguing that someone holding a master key was the culprit, this locked room could be easily broken. However, since the number of keys that could open this door are limited, and furthermore it's clearly known who holds them, saying that would mean that I was suspecting someone I knew well. Now, have I just been averting my eyes? In that locked room trick with the chapel, which had been exhilarating to destroy, I had proposed that someone stole the key from Maria's handbag and returned it. If that theory was right, then the question becomes who could have stolen the key from her handbag? Maria's handbag had probably been at its most unguarded when she was sleeping. In that case, in addition to me, George, Aniki, and Jessica are also suspects. George, Aniki, or Jessica was the culprit? Or maybe an accomplice? All of our parents had been killed, right? And yet, one of us consented to that and assisted with the crime? We had lamented, mourned, and shed tears in the chapel, and yet one among us had been lying?
そなたの例の手提げから抜き出し戻したという説は、いとこたちを色濃く疑うものであったのだぞ。にもかかわらず、それに気づかないふりをして、よくもあれだけの説をシャーシャーとのたまえたものよ。
くそ。だからって、親族や使用人の誰かが犯人だって保証はねえ。お前が、例えば段ボール箱にでも隠れながらコソコソと近づいてきて、熟睡してる俺たちの部屋に忍び込んで鍵を奪った可能性だって十分あるじゃねえか。
それについてはそれでもよかろう。19人目の来客であるわらわを疑うことで彼らに疑いをかけずに済む。ならばジェシカの部屋の施錠はどうする？わらわは魔法で鍵を開けることは造作もないが、さすがにマスターキーは持たぬ。わらわの魔法を否定するならば、わらわを疑うことも否定せねばならんぞ。そしてそれはつまり、そなたら18人の中の誰かを疑うことよ。
親切にありがとうよ。少し整理できたぜ。俺にとっての目的は、人間である19人目の来客、ベアトリーチェがどうやって犯行に及んだかに迫ることだ。そうすれば、誰も疑わずに済む。
それができればな。愚かな男よ。こんな部屋、本来は密室でも何でもない。何しろ、開けることのできる鍵は、合計で6本もあるのだからな。そしてそれらの所有者は何人もいる。誰でも疑える。疑い放題よ。なのにお前はわざわざそれらを全て否定し、自分で密室を作ってしまった。わかるか？これは、お前の思考的矛盾が生み出した密室なのよ。他の誰でもない。そなた自身が扉を閉ざしているのだ。
魔女が魔法で開けたことを認めるか、俺の知る誰かが犯人であることを認めるかの二択だって言いたいんだな。くそ、大手飛車取りのつもりかよ。
こういう指し手もあると披露したかったまで。さて、どうする後ろ宮バトラー。実に簡単な話じゃないか。あの自意識過剰な料理男と死に損ないのクソババアをちょいと生贄に仕立て上げるだけじゃない。
くそ、幸田さんと熊沢さんを疑えばそれでいいのか。ダメだ。俺は幸田さんが犯人だとは思えない。熊沢さんが犯人だとは思えない。だがお前は認めない。絶対だ。
ならば魔法もマスターキーも使わずにこの部屋に入り、ジェシカとカノンを殺し、しかもカノンの死体を魔法を使わずに消失させねばならない。
I mean, the whole thing of erasing Kanon's corpse is something that you're claiming. There is no way for them to conclude that Kanon's corpse actually has been erased. They just don't see it right now. Or it might be stashed somewhere. Beto is just jealous of Goda's cooking skills. Don't sus Goda. I mean, I gotta say, I don't particularly like him. What I have said about him thus far has not been invalidated. But that doesn't mean I would necessarily pounce on the idea that he's a murderer, you know, like freaking cold-hearted mass murderer who like would go to those kinds of amounts of overkill. So, yeah, I don't know.
どうやって行う？わらわを否定しつつ、誰も疑わずにどうやって行うのか。
Got a culprit, heart as cold as his ice cream dessert. Ay, ay, ay.
Design だ。
え、バトラ君、今なんて。
降参だよ。俺はカノン君にこの扉が施錠できないことは証明できた。だからといってジェシカを誰が殺したのかを特定できたわけじゃない。
いえ、十分です。カノン君のためにありがとうございます。
礼なんかいらねえ。それはつまりシャノンちゃんも疑ってるってことなんだからよ。ローザおばさんもごめんよ。別に反抗したかったわけじゃない。俺も死にたくないし、親父たちの本当の仇を見つけ出したい。
Goda just wants to be noticed. Aww.
協調性のないこと言って悪かったぜ。
うんうん、
いいの。私も少し軽率だったわ。仲直りしましょう。おばと追い同士、仲良くしないと。ね。
Auntie Rosa shifted the gun to one hand and held out her other hand. I reached out and for the time being, we shook hands. Oh, alright. Auntie's gaze was sharp. In order to deny the witch, she would make anyone a sacrifice. That's what her eyes told me. And me, I denied the witch. But I wasn't prepared to lose anything. I was probably the one who thought himself most ready to fight, and the one standing furthest from the truth. In terms of denying or accepting the witch, the one thing that's still on my mind is what the heck did that scene mean with all of the siblings and their spouses, wherever there were spouses, except Rosa, who doesn't have one, being in the chapel, judging by the backgrounds, and saying to Beatrice that they acknowledge her or accept her or whatever. Because it was all of them there, including Rosa. The backgrounds were of the chapel, but it was like this whole thing that kind of like felt completely out of context. And then the next morning they were all dead, except for Rosa. And every time it comes back to her, and every time it comes back to accepting or not accepting Beatrice, it just, the scene just pops into my mind. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I'm so stressed out. Byrne promised advice, her messenger is good. Ay. According to Genji-san, when tomorrow morning comes, the boat should arrive. Also, the thing that I am just to conclude that idea, why I'm so confused is that the next day when they were discovering what had happened in the chapel, there was this whole portion of the exchange dedicated to explaining just how they never would have dared to get close to the chapel because their father prohibited it, and you know, even getting the key and opening it up and checking inside, Rosa had to, at least from what was described to us from her perspective, fight against those instincts that had been already kind of like set within her, that she shouldn't be going into that space, that it's like this sacred kind of thing that they were not allowed next to, yet they were all there. I am tempted to say the night before, but I can't even say that because I don't know what that scene means. It just within the timeline of the previous night, that scene was inserted. I don't know what it means, but it was there. And with all of these pieces of context that were added later, it just confuses me more. I don't know what it means. It's just still in the back of my mind every time the topic comes up. Right, so according to Genji-san, when tomorrow morning comes, the boat should arrive. The boat has a radio too. We'll probably be able to contact the police immediately with that. Yeah, keep your hopes up, I guess. We all gathered in the parlor and decided to wait quietly until tomorrow. I proposed that we should search throughout the mansion for clues about the culprit, but Auntie Rosa rejected that, saying that if we put pressure on the culprit or provoked them, it might lead to a third murder. I mean, it's still gonna happen. That was probably the right thing to do. Even if a bunch of amateurs like us investigated, there's no way we'd find anything. It would be wisest to focus on protecting ourselves without doing anything unnecessary, and leave it to the police after tomorrow. We had been tense in the beginning, but other than Auntie Rosa, most of us had spent all morning watching TV and were getting bored, so our sense of danger had grown much less intense. When we thought about it, even though there certainly had been 6 adults killed at once in the first murder, that made us imagine that some backhanded method like poison had been used. And in the second murder, it was thought that those who had become sacrifices because they were unfortunately isolated. Sorry, that those two had become sacrifices because they were unfortunately isolated from the rest of us. From this, we imagined that there weren't a great number of culprits, and they didn't have the ability to kill this large group gathered in the parlor all at once. Right now, in this parlor, there was George Aniki and me, Maria, Auntie Rosa, Genji-san, Goda-san, Shannon-san, Kumasawa-san, and finally Dr. Nanjo. A total of 9 people were here. Furthermore, Auntie Rosa was even armed with a gun. Surely, with this many people staying in this room, they wouldn't be able to touch us easily. That feeling of security, along with the passage of time, allowed us to recover from the shock of that morning bit by bit. Incidentally, lunchtime had just ended for us. However, it had been a canned food lunch, a far cry from last night's dinner, which Goda had skillfully made for us. Auntie Rosa too had suspected that poison had been used in the murder of those 6 people. So, we probably couldn't deny the possibility that the culprit had snuck into the kitchen during all that confusion in the morning and mixed poison in with the ingredients there. Auntie Rosa had ordered all of us not to put anything into our mouths except safe foods like canned food until the police came. Now they're going back to the canned food. Interesting. As a cook, Goda-san must have felt very let down. Oh. As though he wanted to display his skill anyway, he said that he at least wanted to bring the plates and pile them up with canned food. At first, Auntie Rosa had been reluctant examining each one of the plates that were brought, but she hadn't been able to find anything to complain about. And Goda-san's chef's pick canned food combo lunch had become a reality. What? Goda-san had said something about taste being savored not just with the tongue, but with the eyes too. I found myself agreeing. It had been the same canned food we ate for breakfast, but it felt like something completely different. Thank you, Goda.
バトラ、見て見て。これが狼と羊のパズル。
Okay, what is that? As I was sitting lazily on the sofa with no desire to watch TV, Maria came over, pulled a picture book out of her handbag, and held it out to me as she said that.
なんだよ、その本は。狼と羊のパズル？どれどれ？
Wolves and sheep puzzle. It was a phrase that Auntie Rosa had said this morning when we had gone to call on Jessica. At the time, I hadn't known what it meant, and then after that, there was the uproar when Jessica's body was found, so I'd forgotten about it completely. The book that Maria held out to me looked like a foreign picture book or something that had been translated. Opening it, I could tell that the book contained an assortment of puzzles.
何匹かの狼と羊をね、1台のボートを使って対岸まで連れてくパズルなの。
That kind of puzzle. Okay.
そんなルールのゲームを聞いたことあるな。これはそれの狼と羊バージョンなのか。
It was a very simple puzzle passed on from long ago. Let's try one of the problems. On the right bank, there are 2 wolves and 2 sheep. There is a boat that as many as 2 animals can ride on, and using it you have to move all 4 of them to the opposite left bank. There are 2 rules. The first is regarding the boat. It can be paddled by wolves or sheep, and even just by 1 animal on its own, but it can only hold up to 2. The second is regarding the wolves. When they are greater in number than the sheep in that location, they attack the sheep and it's game over. For example, at the start of the game, both sheep ride the boat and go to the other side. Then one sheep gets off and the other goes back to the first bank. When it does, there are 2 wolves on the first bank, and the single sheep returns there. When that happens, there are more wolves, so the sheep is attacked and it's game over. Yeah, I remember this type of puzzles. There were various ways of putting it, not necessarily with wolves and sheep, and I've done quite a bit of it when I was in, I don't know, primary and middle school. Sometime there were some problems like this in some math or logic textbooks that we had. I remember doing them. I wasn't necessarily like, but this is something that generally applies to me with puzzles. I'm not super like immediately onto figuring it out. I have to kind of like mess it up a few times until I get kind of like the rules and what is to be avoided in terms of like sets of moves that you shouldn't make because then it results in a situation that is negative. And then after that I finally figure it out. So I wouldn't say that I'm good at it. I just possibly with enough time and a few attempts at trial and error, I will get it eventually. Right. On either bank or even the boat, there must not be more wolves than sheep. It's a puzzle about how to shuttle them across in the boat under these conditions. By the way, the right answer is, on the first turn, move both wolves to the opposite bank. Then one wolf comes back. On the second turn, move 2 sheep to the opposite bank. Then 1 wolf comes back, and then 2 wolves go back, yeah. Then on the third turn, put that last wolf that was on the right bank on the boat and cross to the opposite bank, and congratulations, transport successful. Yep. Episode 2 may or may not be such a puzzle. Okay. Partway, there may be the same number of wolves and sheep in the boat, or on either side, but that isn't a problem. Partway, there may be the same number of wolves and sheep in the boat. Okay. You only lose when the number of wolves is greater. This book symbolizes it using wolves and sheep, but there are probably lots of people who know this same game with a different symbolism. It looked like Maria wanted to test whether I too could solve the puzzles she knew how to solve. And she kept showing me different pages saying, solve this one and this one's hard. I also know of a variation with wolves, goats, and cabbage. And the wolves eat the goats. I think it was wolves and not some other animal. But whatever, something that is a predator to the goats. And then the goats themselves eat the cabbage. And you want to get everything to the other side safely. But at the same time, you also have the added complexity of rock, paper, scissors kind of thing in 3 ways. Plus, you cannot put the cabbage on the boat and have the cabbage steer the boat. Because that doesn't work. But you still have to somehow transport it safely. I don't remember it very, very clearly. But I do remember this 3-way kind of thing and the goat eating the cabbage. Yeah. What had been happening when Auntie Rosa had said the name of this puzzle? That's right. When we decided to go call Jessica, we had been talking about how many men should go, and Auntie Rosa mentioned the wolves and sheep puzzle, and said that we should all go together.
Oi, oi.
That could only mean one thing. Auntie Rosa was saying that there are wolves among us. I mean, is that news? Because again, we're going into the same loop here. If we are not accepting fantastical, mystical, magical powers that go through walls and open doors magically, then there have to be humans, and there have to be humans out of the humans that are around us. Nah. Yeah. And when the number of wolves and sheep is balanced, we're safe, but when a situation comes up where that isn't the case, the wolves will bare their fangs. Is that what she's thinking? At the time we had found our parents' corpses, Auntie Rosa was already suspecting that the servants might be wolves. While she didn't know whether it was all of them or just some, she had sniffed out the possibility that wolves were hiding among them. Well, yeah, that murder scene was pretty damn elaborate. It's easy to imagine that there were multiple culprits. And considering that she had that idea already in mind when we went to Jessica's room, where Jessica had been alone with the servant Kanon and had been killed, it isn't hard to imagine why Auntie Rosa had suspected the servants so persistently.
使用人の皆さん、合田さんが食器を洗いに厨房に戻ります。念のためです。皆さんも同行してください。
皆さん、申し訳ありません。団体行動で参りましょう。
シャノン、熊沢、行くぞ。
はいはい、ただいま。
それではジョージさん、一度失礼いたします。
うん。気をつけて。あ、ローザおばさん。僕も一緒に行っていいかな。
ごめんなさい。ジョージ君は残ってくれるかしら。ちょっとお話ししたいことがあるの。
そうですか。シャノン、ごめん。とにかく気をつけて。一人にならないでね。
はい。
南條先生、すみません。ちょっとご相談が。
はい。何ですかな。
Perhaps there are wolf girls with fluffy tails among them. This reminds me, are they gonna make a remake of Spice and Wolf? Because I keep seeing things that might be the case. I haven't looked into it though. I saw some key artwork and stuff. So it's true, it's happening, right? Yeah, I know. My first reaction was like, but why? The original was good, it just didn't have an end. 2024, okay. Yeah. I had gathered that much and it isn't something immediate. Alright. Let's wait another 5 years until they finish season 3. maybe it's gonna get like a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood kind of thing. You know, one can only hope. Finish by 2035, trust me. Oh. I feel you though, I feel you. I think this is one big reason why I'm not necessarily up to date with when the anime that I could possibly be interested in will be released, because it would be something like, oh yeah, tune in like 3-4 more years, that's when it should be done. And it's like, no, I just want to be surprised. Like, for example, I was not up to date with the fact that there would be a new Vinland Saga season coming out this year. I just opened up Crunchyroll one day and I was like, oh, it's Vinland Saga, this is a new season, great, let's sit down and watch it. You know, like, I would rather take that, because I can't be, I don't know, it feels so abstract to me. Oh, in like 3-5 years I'll get to see this. Yeah, by then I will forget what has happened. Wasn't like season 3 like, I don't know, part 1, part 2, part 1, part 2, part 2, something like that? It was like a ridiculous amount of like slicing. It's almost done, Clueless. VN adaptations that more often than not are beyond horrible and never get another adaptation. Aw, I'm sorry. You know, I watched the Tsukime one. I thought there was a compelling under layer of the entire story, which is probably, you know, the fact that it is based on a well-established previous work. But yeah, it did feel in various places not alright. But that was like, wow, that was so long ago that I watched it. What was it? Was it like 2009, 10, I want to say, at the very latest that I watched it. Yeah, okay, I see. Well, that is the most that I know about it, because I never read it. Sorry, Bea, I have not read Spice and Wolf. I just watched whatever was adapted so far, and personally I liked it. It was quite refreshing. It was different from all of the other things that I had been watching at the time, and it just gave me a perspective of like what else could be translated to the medium and actually be done quite interestingly. A lot of people were also saying that it's boring. I didn't find it boring. It was just something else. It was different. And if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's okay. There are a lot of things that are coming out nowadays that I just I developed this kind of feeling where like I just look at the poster of the anime and I can tell, oh yeah, that's not for me. It's for the, you know, younger generation. I can no longer be bothered. Yeah, something like that. The servants put the dishes and empty cans on the serving cart and started to head out into the corridor. Behind them, Auntie Rosa was talking to Dr. Nanjo about something in a small voice. I want to know what that something is.
わかりました。
Okay.
参りましょう。
ええ、よろしくお願いしますね。
Dr. Nanjo closed the book he had been reading, stood from the sofa, and followed after the servants. Auntie Rosa stuck her head out into the hallway, and after watching them leave completely, she closed the door and spoke.
みんな聞いて。これで今ここにいるのは後ろ宮の人間だけね。
ん？確かにそうなりますね。
狼を全部追い出したってことっすか、ローザおばさん。
With that one sentence, Auntie Rosa's gaze grew sharp. Apparently, she had picked up on my sardonic tone. Auntie Rosa laughed lightly.
バトラ君は頭の回転が早いのね。賢い子は好きよ。話が早いわ。
おー、バトラ頭いい？これ解ける？ 64 ページの難しいの。おー。
マリアは少しの間テレビを見ていなさい。ママはバトラ君たちとお話があるの。
おー。
ローザおばさん、パズルの話はバトラ君に聞いたよ。用心深いのは悪いことじゃないと思うけど、さすがに疑り深すぎるのもどうかと思うよ。
真の犯人がベアトリーチェかどうかは別にして、少なくとも使用人たちがその一味であることを疑うことはできると思うの。兄さんたちが殺されていた最初の殺人、とても残酷な仕打ちがされていたわよね。あれが一人でできる真似に見える。
謎の来客ベアトリーチェ様が夜鍋をしてチクチクやったのかもしれねえぜ。
Oh God.
ジェシカちゃんの部屋の扉をめぐるマスターキンの件は使用人の誰かが関わっている証拠じゃない。
Only a master key could have locked the door to Jessica's room. In that case, we can only suppose that one of the servants locked it. No, you can only suppose that the master key was used, and it is more likely that a servant did it, but you cannot assert that with 100% certainty. I've thought that by so far, this would have been clear, that you can assert some certainty about the means to do something if you have enough information to gather and say and like decide nothing else could have been done, like for example this door being locked by a master key because the only other key would have been Jessica's, which was inside the room, right? So that thing you can ascertain, but can you really ascertain who used it and how? Like, didn't we have a case of the traveling key before? Okay. No, wait.
チェス盤をひっくり返すぜ。
Yeah, flip it, Battler. Okay, what is it?
おかしいよ、ローザおばさん。なんで犯人はジェシカを殺した後、わざわざ施錠したんだ？施錠すれば、マスターキーの持ち主が疑われるのは必然。わざわざ施錠する必要がないぜ。
そうだよ。バトラ君の言う通りだ。わざわざ疑われるようなことをする理由がない。
それは面白い考えよね。
Only if you flip the flipping, and that's what they want you to think. Oh, my head is spinning.
もちろん、私もそれは考えた。だとしたら、施錠した人物は使用人を疑わせたくて、マスターキーなしであの扉を閉めた。でもそれは不可能。でしょ？
That's right. If there was a trick that could lock the door without a master key, this would be a good disguise aimed at casting doubt on the servants. If the culprit wanted to isolate us and attack us one by one, this trick was a very effective one that could even give rise to paranoia. However, there was no way to lock that door without using a master key.
マスターキーを使わずに閉める方法がない。なんて、どうして言い切れるの？ルドルフ兄さんの言っていた悪魔の証明になるんじゃない？ 私たちには想像もつかない方法で締められたのかもしれない。私たちに思いつかないからといって未知のトリックがあることを否定することにはならない。
I'd say it's extremely hard to adapt a story which heavily relies on describing someone feeling like they go crazy. Are you talking about Tsukihime or about Umineko? It can be done well, but I feel like it's above the pay grade of your usual anime. Yeah, there's a lot of differences in the medium where a story is told that I don't know, particularly maybe because the story is initially envisioned for a specific medium, it fits it much better because it's originally built around it, and then when you want to translate it to another, a lot of things get lost and it's hard to portray it as well or convey the same kind of feeling back. Alright, I see.
そりゃそうだけどよ。つまりあれか？疑わしきは黒ってわけなのか？
具体的なトリックはわからないけれど、それでも外角はわかるの。申し訳ないけど、カノン君を犯人だと仮定すると非常に簡単に説明できる。死体がない理由までね。
だってカノン君はマスターキーを持ってなかったんですよ。他の使用人ならともかくカノン君にだけは施錠はできなかったはず。
なるほど。それでローザおばさんはジェシカの部屋に入って早々に俺たちにクローゼットなんかを探せと言い出したわけか。ローザおばさんこそ普段の様子から想像できるより頭の回転が速いな。
妹の頭の回転速度は常に姉マイナス1よ。今は誰にも気を使う必要がないからせいせいするわ。
George Aniki realized that she was referring to Auntie Eva. Sorry about that. Alright. It seemed a little disturbed about how he should take that nasty remark. Oh, I missed a line from Zekto. Visual media always struggles with inner thought-heavy narration. Yeah, of course. Because that's not what it does. It does a lot of things much better, but that is not one of them. It's the opposite. It's one of its pitfalls, I guess.
ごめん。
Not to mention that a lot of people perceive any kind of narration or any kind of inner monologue, whatever, as being a sin of cinema or of just this kind of like medium. I don't really watch it anymore because I'm not really that engaged by it for a long period of years, but there was a time when I watched Cinema Sins a lot because it was interesting to see the things that they would point out. But after a while they were just like, oh, narration, and it was always like a bad point in their view, even in places where I felt like that was not really the case. And I guess this was one of the reasons why I stopped watching, because I no longer felt connected to what they were pointing out. Yeah, like it's not just it's like it's not necessarily bad by default. It's how you use it and how you combine it with other ways of driving the story forward.
僕にも分かるように説明してほしいな。カノン君のマスターキーはジェシカちゃんのポケットに入って密室に閉じ込められていた。施錠した後に部屋の外からポケットに入れるなんて芸当は不可能なはず。
違うんだよ兄貴。ローザおばさんの想像しているやり方ならこのトリックはカノン君にしか使えない。そしてジェシカのポケットにマスターキーを入れたまま鍵なしで施錠することができる。そしてその結果として死体もなくなることになる。
どうやって？鍵なしでどうやって施錠するんだい？
簡単よ。ジョージ君だって帰宅したら施錠するでしょ。つまみをひねってカチリとね。
まさか。いや でも、カノン君の姿はどこにも。
兄貴にもピンときたみてえだな。ローザおばさんが室内を探したのはそういうことだ。内側から鍵を閉め、ジェシカのポケットに鍵を突っ込んだカノン君が、どこかに隠れて、俺たちをやり過ごそうとしているのを探したんだ。
See, that is also one thing that probably my thinking is very limited in terms of. Because those kinds of doors are unfamiliar to me. Those are not the kinds of doors that we have here. And our kinds of doors definitely don't lock by themselves. You have to have a key, inside or outside. So this is a kind of detail that I would never think about. The simplest locked room trick. In other words, to hide inside the locked room after committing the murder. And if you could get out after those who discovered the body left, it would create a perfect locked room murder.
私たちはあの部屋を探したけれど何も見つけられなかった。でもだからといってあの部屋に使用人たちしか知らない秘密の隠し通路のようなものがないとは言えない。それがどこに隠されていたかはわからないけれど、その隠し通路を仮定し推理することで彼しかありえないと断言できるのよ。
その推理はよ、俺も一番最初に考えた。一番嫌な推理だから。一番最初にその可能性を潰した。
Yeah, I'm not very fond of it either.
カノンはこの部屋で殺された。で、そなたはカノンが犯人であると疑いそうになったため、真っ先にその可能性を潰すために。これ、わかっておるわかっておる。
だから、その次に考えたのはこうだった。あの部屋にいたのは実は3人だったという説だ。ジェシカとカノン君は被害者。そして、犯人である来客ベアトリーチェも一緒にいた。
そなたは、人間であるわらわが、魔法を使わずに犯行を行ったことにしたいのだったな。なるほど。そなたにぴったりの陳説であるぞ。
お前は2人を殺し、内側から施錠した。そして、カノン君の死体を担いで、普通の人は気づかない秘密の方法。つまり、隠し扉を使って部屋から脱出したんだと読んだ。しかし、お前に赤で言われちまった。あの部屋に隠し扉の類はないってな。
うん。お前たちの知らない秘密の通路は存在せぬぞ。
No secret passage exists. Unknown to you all. Does that mean that a secret passage exists that is known to you all? Or known to, you know, at least someone? Why does she have to add the detail of, like, unknown to you all? Isn't the secret thing unknown by default? No comment. I'm so confused. But I totally understand. I'm just voicing my confusion because I don't know what else to do with it. When I say this, like, most of the questions that I raise are just generally rhetorical questions. I'm not expecting an answer or an explanation from you in chat, so that's okay. Unless the novel answers it, I guess it will stay a rhetorical question. But it's like, this is very specific of how Beatrice talks. At least the way I perceive it in English, the way it was translated. She adds all of these like tiny things that if you didn't pay enough attention, you would think they're natural. But then if you do and stop and think about it, it's like, why do you have to say it in this way? Why do you have to add this tidbit? Yeah, and this was just one of it. One of them.
ノックスだったかバンダインだったか。何でもミステリーには秘密の通路があってはいけないらしい。
Ah, there it is. The rules of mystery novels that Bear asked me to document myself on. I remember that.
そのお作法にわらわも従ったということよ。
Oh, do you now?
つまり名探偵は 部屋を調べ尽くさずして隠し通路がないと断言できるわけだ。人間の推理ごっことはなんとお気楽なものよの。
くそ。でけえこと言いやがるぜ。ありがとよ。魔女様のお取り計らいのおかげで、俺も部屋を探し尽くさずに、あの部屋に隠し扉がないと断言できるぜ。
うん。この部屋に隠し扉はない。扉と窓以外に出入りする方法はない。
Wait, did she mention the windows before? Didn't I make a comment that we could possibly talk about the windows as well, but then obviously it was added that they were locked from the inside, and I was like, oh, okay. Did she mention this before?
ってことはよ、今、ローザおばさんがぶってる自信満々の仮説は、しかも悔しいことに、この仮説は反証不能だ。魔女のお前は赤で、隠し扉はないと断言すれば、それで決着する。しかし人間の俺は、ローザおばさんにそれを反論しても、受け入れられないだろう。隠し扉がないことを人間は証明できない。悪魔の証明になっちまう。くっそ。魔女ってのは便利だな。
そんな、あるかないかもわからない隠し扉を理由にカノン君を犯人呼ばわりするなんて、僕は納得できないな。
納得できないならより納得できる推理を聞かせて。
Oh, excuse me, I did not mean to press this one.
そんな。
Sorry, there we go.
ないのよ。私はずっと考えてる。これしかないのよ。ジョージ君はシャノンちゃんと仲が良かったわね。だから使用人全員が犯人であることは受け入れがたいと思うの。私もシャノンちゃんが犯人の一味であるなんて信じたくない。でも全員であるか否かはともかく、確実にあの中に犯人もしくは共犯がいるのよ。それだけは見誤っちゃダメ。
カノン君以外にも狼がいると見てたんなら、ジェシカの部屋で犯人はカノン君だと大騒ぎしたのは使用人たちの反応を見るため。
ええ、そうよ。そしてその結果、私は一層の疑いを持つに至ったわ。確実に使用人の中に狼がいる。確実にね。そして狼と羊のパズルのように普段はおとなしくしているけれど、チャンスがあったら襲ってくるに違いないの。
Rosa is smart.
ジェシカちゃんは一人で船に乗った羊よ。あのパズルでは頭数の時は襲ってこないけど、私たちのパズルは違う。チャンスと人数次第なら頭数でも襲ってくる。ジェシカちゃんが殺されたように。
僕は怒りたいことがある。じゃあ厨房へ行かされてるシャノンは危険な状態じゃないか。今すぐ僕たちも厨房へ行くべきだ。誰が狼だろうと狼でなかろうと、僕たち全員が揃っていれば均衡するならそれを保ち続けるべきだと思う。
シャノンちゃんはお父様のところへ源氏さんと一緒に行った。その時に孤立したはずなのに殺されなかった。源氏さんも狼ではないから。違うわ。二人とも狼だったからよ。
シャノンは悪事の片棒を担ぐような人じゃない。いくらローザおばさんでもそれは聞き流せません。今の発言に対し僕は取り消しを要求します。
あいやいやいやいやい。
兄貴の前で悪いが、その論法エヴァおばさんの雰囲気にそっくりだな。こっちが反論できなきゃ自動的に自分が正しいみたいな。やっぱり血は争えないな、おばさん。
I like this observation from Battler. It's spot on.
私だって今の自分はあまり褒められたものじゃないとは思ってる。でもね、私は母なの。マリアの無事を守るためなら鬼にもなるわ。本当なら マリアと二人きりでどこかに閉じこもっていたいくらいよ。でも私は同時にあなたたちの母でもあるつもりなの。今やあなたたちは私の子供も同然。私は自分の子じゃないからといってあなたたちを見捨てたりしない。
It's interesting. Rosa's approach to the situation is quite different than Natsuhi's. Because it's not like Natsuhi wasn't smart as well. It's just that I feel she had a more reactive approach to everything. So she was reacting to what was happening rather than anticipated or try to detangle the mystery. I feel Rosa is more involved into that direction. It's interesting. We get to see different things in different characters.
絶対
そりゃどうも。
私はあなたたちの母として油断しないでと警告したかっただけなの。常に私の目の届くところにいて私があなたたちを守ってあげる。
ついでに俺たちが狼でないことも監視してくれるってわけだ。そりゃありがたいぜ。
He isn't very shrewd. I mean, I guess it's just about her nature. She was a lot more motherly, which Rosa is also attempting to do, but Natsuhi was definitely a lot more motherly in these moments. Not that she wasn't thinking or wasn't trying to, you know, make up a strategy and follow it in order to keep people safe. It's just she wasn't as deeply involved into it and so many layers and, you know, with as much intent and purposes as Rosa is doing right now.
そういうおばさんは自分が狼ではないって証明はできるのかよ。
ええ、できるわ。
即答っすね。
Oh, I'm curious. How?
どうやって？
これよ。これが証拠よ。
Heh? Auntie Rosa held up the gun and pointed the barrel at me. But that was only for an instant. She immediately lowered the gun, laughing impishly. But to me, the time I spent staring down the barrel of the gun had felt like an eternity.
その銃がどうローザおばさんが犯人でないことを証明するというんですか？
考えてもみて。私が犯人だったらどう？使用人たちが出ていたこの千載一遇の機会を逃すと思う？あなたたちをズドンと撃って、あとは適当な言い訳をするだけよ。
Rosa is crazy, so this crazy situation is familiar territory to her. Oh god.
窓の外にベアトリーチェが現れて銃を撃ってきたとかね。私は2発を撃ち返したと称して2発分の空薬莢を床に捨てればいい。
そりゃすげえ乱暴な理論だが確かに一理あるぜ。
クラウス兄さんが昔よく言ってたわ。力こそ正義ってね。これがまさにそうなのかしら。ごめんなさいね、二人とも。私も今朝からの事件続きでかなり冷静さを失ってる。普段の私を知る二人から見れば今の私は余裕がなくて少し短気そうに見えるかもしれない。でも分かってる。私は悪意ある犯人からあなたたちを守りたい。そのためには鬼になる。それだけのことなの。怒らせるようなことを言ってごめんなさいね。バトラ君、ジョージ君、仲直りしましょう。
Judge Aniki was wearing an unsatisfied expression. He probably couldn't forgive the damage done to Shannon's honor. What about me? Several bits of circumstantial evidence hint strongly at the servant's participation. I don't want to believe that one of them is the culprit or possibly colluding with the culprit, but in the current situation that's nothing but wishful thinking. Who should I believe? In the first place, who is the culprit? Are there accomplices? If so, how many? I feel like I'm constantly only suspecting the people connected to all this. I find myself quickly forgetting about that 19th person, the guest, Beatrice, who came yesterday and boldly called herself the Golden Witch. I haven't actually seen her face. I've heard that she's like a double of the witch in that portrait, but because I haven't seen her directly, no matter how hard I try, I can't really feel like these are 19 people on this island. There are 19 people on this island. I'm tired. My bad. So I easily slip into the illusion that the culprit is one of the 18. And round in the circle we go. Ah, damn it. Come out, Beatrice. If you're the bad guy, then act like the bad guy and show yourself laughing in a high-pitched voice and looking down on us. Just like a bad guy in one of those dramas who, even once they're exposed as the culprit, aggressively says, "Is there any proof?" Oh man.
証拠は終わりかの?
Of course she did this.
うっせえ。てめえはしばらく黙ってろ。
There were 5 humans in the kitchen, but it was very quiet, filled only with the sound of the rain. It was only accented by the sound of Kanon and Kumasawa washing the dishes. Goda was using the leftovers from breakfast and lunch as ingredients for her servant's soup. Rosa had suspected that poison might have been added to the food, so they had decided to eat canned food, but it hadn't really been filling. But Goda thought that she was being too careful. So he was spontaneously creating a soup to be served only to those that wanted to eat it. Kanon and Kumasawa were washing the dishes that the food had been arranged on. On the inside, they thought maybe Goda should be the one to wash them, since he had been the one who wanted the food on plates in the first place. But they left their complaints unsaid for the time being. Genji and Nanjo were facing each other across a crude chess set, which had seen many years. It had still only just begun. And because of the opening game of the experienced players, because the opening game of the experienced players had been endlessly refined, it looked like a ritual where they just moved specified pieces in a specified order.
良い匂いですね。やはり缶詰ではこうはいきませんね。
開封した食材だけで作りましたので、毒が混入しているなんてことはありませんよ。皆さんの分もお作りしていますので、ぜひ食べましょう。もちろん、私もお毒味しますよ。安心して召し上がってください。
ゴーダさんのまかない料理は本当に美味しいです。
Food again, to be honest, this doesn't do anything for me. It's not that appetizing. I'm good.
美味しい材料を買ってきて、美味しい料理が作れるのは当たり前です。私は師匠に、あり合わせのもので美味しく作るまかない料理を極めてこそ、真の料理人だと習いました。
それはいい師匠でしたな。おかげで私はとても美味しいスープをごちそうになれそうです。
親族の皆様にお召し上がりいただくための材料で作ることになってしまったのが残念。
ローザさんも朝からのいろいろでお疲れなのでしょう。無理もないことです。
でもそのおかげで美味しい食材のスープが飲めるのですからね。
Rosa had fervently told everyone that they didn't realize the danger they were in, and that they must suspect that poison was mixed in with the food. The atmosphere in that place had led to their agreement, but their hunger wouldn't be overcome by that momentary emotion.
皮肉にも、普段の私たちではとても味わえないスープとなりました。できるなら、客間の皆さんにもぜひ振る舞いたいところなのですが。
ローザ様のご指示に背いている以上、よした方がいいだろう。飲みたいものだけ飲むといい。
ほほほほほ。見えないところで上手に息抜きするのも使用人の心得でございますものね。
Kumasawa is probably the most versed in this direction. Masao laughed loudly and Shannon and Goda laughed with her. It seemed that in an area where only their fellow servants were gathered, they could be very relaxed. Shannon didn't like Goda's occasional dishonesty, but she knew that there was no falsehood in his childish smile when he cooked, nor in his desire that people enjoy his food. So even though it was a little aggravating to be made to wash the dishes, she couldn't really hate him. However, they couldn't have dreamed that Rosa was calling them wolves in the parlor at exactly the same moment that they were spending their time peacefully like this. Oh well. At that time, several of the servants heard a sound like something was being dragged and then a thump. Oh god, oh god, oh god, what is it? When a servant was out carrying a mountain of trash bags on a rainy day, or doing some work in a raincoat, they would create exactly this kind of noise and presence as they returned and hovered around the back door. Oh god. The fact that also the background is black and this is being described, it gives me like such a murky feeling in the depths of my stomach. Oh god. Oh, no. So after hearing that sound, at first none of them noticed anything out of the ordinary, but they quickly realized, in a situation where everyone was either in the kitchen or the parlor, who in the world was at the back door? And the music is there to make it even creepier. Thank you. Thank you. As the servants all looked at each other, they checked to make sure that each one of them knew what that sound meant. The servants knew the mansion's layout well, so they understood how unimaginable it would be for someone from the parlor to actually go outside in this typhoon, go all the way around and come up to this back door. It's so creepy. Why did they have to choose this music? I mean, why am I asking? I know why. It's because it's so fitting. It's so fitting that it's giving me the creeps. Oh. Then, was it Kinzo? They found it even more difficult to imagine that Kinzo, who never left his study even under normal conditions, would dash out into the middle of this typhoon for no apparent reason and come to the back of the house where only low-class people come in or out. Oh, Kanon's profile. Maybe not. Oh, he's just a black silhouette. There is no corpse, but he's dead. The witch declared it in red, so even without a corpse, his death is incontrovertible. There it is. Ay. Shannon and Kumasawa drew close together, fearfully looking at the back door.
どちら様ですか?
As Gola fearfully approached the back door, he called out, and he checked with his eyes the location of a butcher's knife set on a nearby sink. He didn't pick it up yet, because there was still a possibility that this was a member of the family. However, that possibility wasn't possible. There was no response from across the door to Goda's initial question. Maybe his voice had been so quiet that it hadn't reached through all the wind and rain outside.
Genji-san.
南條先生と女たちは下がって。
一体どなたなんですかな?
Genji took a knife with the classical design from a stationery box placed near the chess set. It was something to be used instead of a paper knife to open envelopes for invoices and bills. But it was fundamentally a knife. So the blade on it could injure someone. Genji hid it in his sleeve with a well-practiced manner. Then he too approached the back door and signaled to Goda with a silent nod. Goda cautiously approached the back door and slowly started to open it. Oh my god. The figure of a person suddenly shuffled into sight, landed on its knees, and fell over. Goda fell backwards onto his backside in shock. That figure was soaked with rain, smeared with mud, and drenched with blood.
Kanon? 大丈夫か? 南條先生。
It was Kanon. His breath was feeble, and the puddles of mud he left quickly became drenched bright red. When Nanjo held him and turned him face up, there was a deep, gruesome scar right in the center of his chest, as though he had been run through with a spear or something. Even now, deep red blood poured out from there.
これはひどいですよ。どうしましょう。救急箱ですか？救急箱ですか？
カノンさん、傷口に手を当ててしっかり押さえてください。使用人室のベッドに運びましょう。皆さん、手を貸してください。
さあ、カノンさん、しばらく我慢してください。
しっかりして。もう大丈夫よ。だから傷口から手を離さないで。
とにかく使用人室へ運ぼう。熊沢ローザ様にカノンが見つかったことの報告を。
Oh yeah, splitting up, the best choice in this situation.
待って、ローザ様にはダメ。
待ってください。カノンさんがローザ様にはダメだと言っています。
どういう意味なの、カノン君。
今はいい。早く使用人室へ運ぼう。熊沢、ローザ様にはまだお伝えするな。カノンに事情を聞いてからにする。
はい。
Oh my god, after appearing in this horrible state, he had said not to tell Rosa. That could only mean something very disquieting. An eerie sense of panic rose to their faces.
さあ、皆さん。急いで運びましょう。早く。
Kanon's wound was unbelievably deep, and judging from Nanjo's pale face, it was almost a miracle that he was still conscious.
これはひどい。何か槍のようなもので刺されたようです。肺まで届いてなければなんとか持つかも。とにかく止血を。
No matter how much Nanjo tried to wipe off that gushing deep red blood, he couldn't wipe it all away. Okay. And each time the wound was aggravated, causing Kanon to cry in anguish.
カノン君、しっかりして。
南條先生、替えのタオルです。なんてむごい。
容体はどうですか？
本音を言うと、生きているのが信じられん深手だ。刺されどころが幸運だったのかもしれん。だが出血がひどすぎる。輸血が必要だが、明日まで無理だ。
ローザ様が僕たちを。喋ら
ないで、カノン君。傷口が開いちゃ
う。ローザ様がやってきて、お嬢様と。
なんですって？
ローザ様がですか？おお、そんなことって。
間違いないのか？
はい。間違いなくローザ様でした。
さあ、もう喋らないで。熊沢さん、もう一つの救急箱を取ってください。
Oh, sick. Oh, yeah, definitely family-friendly entertainment. That's exactly where we are right now. Spot on.
源氏さん、ローザ様がなんてことはあり得るのでしょうか？
わからん。
Disregarding Nanjo and Kumasawa, who were struggling hard and stained with blood as they tried to stop the bleeding, Genji and Goda faced each other. Because if what Kanon had said was the truth, Rosa was the culprit who killed Jessica. Yeah, Kumasawa's noise. I guess they do. Just missing some fingernails. Oh. What do you mean? Kanon screamed even more hatefully. His hateful voice made it seem like he had seen Jessica being harmed right before his eyes.
確かにローザ様がお嬢様を殺す理由はあるかもしれない。後ろ宮家が全滅すれば遺産はすべてローザ様のもの。
Okay, it's a Higurashi reference. I'm not supposed to get it. I'm calm. It's okay. I don't need to. You can make references that I don't get. It's perfectly alright.
だとしたらバトラー様やジョージ様も危険なのでは。ローザ様は銃を持っている上に今客間には彼らしかいない。源氏さん、これはかなりまずいことでは。
Shannon suddenly ran out into the corridor. Her expression was complex and tragic, as though she didn't know what to believe. Why are you running around alone? Shannon ran. To where? The inside of the mansion had been scrupulously clean, so they probably wouldn't be easy to find. She might find some if she searched the rose garden, but they would probably have all been lost in this wind and rain. That's right. The boiler room isn't cleaned very often. If she went there, she might be able to find some. Some what? Shannon ran down the stairs to search for those in the underground boiler room. Hey? Had some medicine taken effect at the brink of death, or had Kanon finally stopped everything? Had finally stopped even feeling pain. For the time being, Kanon had at least gotten over his painful gasping. Nancho apparently didn't think of this as that great of a trend and didn't let his eyes off Kanon for a second. Kumasawa firmly gripped Kanon's hand and kept encouraging him so that his will to stay alive didn't fall asleep. Genji and Goda seemed bewildered at how to deal with the truth that Kanon had risked his life to deliver.
ローザ様の銃は確か4発か5発の弾が込められたはずだ。
決して少ない数ではないですね。でもあの銃は弾の装填に結構な慣れが必要だったはず。一発目は撃たせてしまうかもしれませんが、みんなで襲いかかれば次を撃たせずに銃を奪い取れるかも。
この島には医者はいても薬はなく、病院もない。撃たれどころが悪ければ死ぬぞ。
それは分かっていますが、それより早く行動を起こさないとまた次の事件が起こる可能性も。私たちはローザ様にうまく追い出された気がします。今頃ジョージ様やバトロ様が殺されている可能性も。
そんな危険な相手なら無理に刺激しない方がいいんじゃありませんか。
しかし明日までは長い。どんな手を打ってくるか想像もつきませんよ。源氏さん、こちらから仕掛けるべきです。せめて10歳理由をこじつけて奪えばなんとかなるかも。
弾は 4,5 発じゃありませんか。ということは私たち全員を殺すには足りないということです。うかつに刺激しなければきっとローザ様もむやみには。
あいつは言ったよ。僕たちを皆殺しにすると言った。
Okay. I don't know what to make of all of this. Kanon, who they thought had been sleeping quietly, suddenly started talking brightly. Almost like he had been awake the whole time and had suddenly opened his mouth. He looked firm and steady, and Nanjo was slightly relieved, but thinking of the deepness of that wound, he just couldn't wipe away a certain creepy feeling. He knew because he was a doctor. Kanon should have been expected to fall unconscious after losing so much blood. And yet somehow he had preserved his awareness so clearly. Youth? Or tenacity? Sometimes the power of human life did surpass common knowledge. When they had stopped the bleeding to make sure there were no foreign objects inside the affected area, Nanjo had groped around a bit inside the bleeding hole with tweezers, and the great depth of the wound had surprised him. The wound had certainly reached as far as his lungs, and yet... No, on the other hand, the fact that he's still alive is fortunate. But Kanon had spoken clearly. He had hatefully said that one named Rosa had created this wound and was repeating curses and enraged words.
This
is not my Kanon. I can't. Nope. Those red eyes. Nope. Kyakka. Nope.
あいつはそうするとはっきり僕に言ったよ。
くそ、なんて人だ。源氏さん、どうしましょう。私たちにも何か武器がいるのでは。
にわかには信じられん。ローザ様がそのようなことを。
源氏様、信じる信じないじゃない。あいつが僕にそう言ったんですよ。この僕が聞いたんです。どうして信じてくれないんですか。
起きないで。傷に触ります。
Kanon sat up on the bed and spoke to Genji, who was making no effort to believe Kanon's story.
あいつは僕たちを必ず全員殺す。もうきっと客間の方々も殺されているに違いありません。僕らが先に殺さなければ必ず僕らが先に殺される。
Sowing the seeds of discord.
僕が先に殺されたようにみんなも先に殺される。殺さなきゃ殺される。
Well, just like you were killed first, but you are not presenting as dead right now. So were you killed?
殺さなきゃ殺される。殺さなきゃ殺される。
カノンさん、あんた本当に痛くないのか。
ああ、これですか。大した傷じゃありません。
大した傷じゃないどころか、あんたは
本当に大したことありません。こんなのもう全然痛くないし、本当に大した傷じゃない。
As Kanon said that, he began to untie his own bandages, which had been painstakingly wrapped. Hey guys, I think something's up with Kanon. No, I think everything's fine. I think you're being paranoid. Oh god. The gruesome hole in his chest was immediately exposed.
カノンさん、そんなことをしてはダメですよ。早く横になって。
大丈夫ですって。ほら。ねえ？大した傷じゃないでしょ？
Just the way he's speaking, it just gives me such a weird, creepy feeling. Like, this is not Kanon. I don't want to hear this in his voice. Kanon showed off his gaping wound, which was still slowly spitting out foamy blood. Ugh. Everyone averted their eyes reflexively.
ほら、全然大した傷じゃないですって。
I know she said so in red, so then the moment he appeared, I personally thought that his corpse had just been dropped. But then when he was gasping for breath and talking, I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And it's going here and further ahead in this direction, and I'm like, nope, nope.
やめなさい。傷をいじってはいけません。
Oh Lord.
ほら、見て。全然深い傷じゃないんですよ。ほら。ほら。
No, don't say such things with Kanon's voice. Oh, don't worry about it, Zekto. I just now noticed you corrected the semicolon into an apostrophe. It's fine, it's fine. You don't want to know the amount of mistakes I make when I type on my phone. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. And it's no longer ranging in typos now. It's also me typing in the wrong chats because I fumbled the destination of where I wanted to go, and then I just saw the text field, which when I press it kind of takes up the screen plus the keyboard coming up, so I don't realize that I am actually not, let's say, in a DM with someone, but I'm in a group chat, but maybe that someone is also present, but there are other people too. So I do that, and yeah, I totally feel you. Trust me, there's no one in the world who understands you more than me. Psy-ad title? I don't know what that is, but if you would kindly explain. I'm an old lady, I don't get such things. Kanon held up two fingers, showed them to everyone, and slowly started to stick them into the gruesome wound right in the center of his chest. Why? Ah, saying chaos had the chaos child, etc. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I'm not so deep into the fandom and community to know that this is how you, like, refer to them collectively, but now I learned something. Thank you. Can't. I see now. I see what you mean because of the semicolon. Gotcha. Oh, God. What is the scene? What are we witnessing? Plunging, slimy, squishy, wet. The fingers went in deep to the base. Squitch, bloop, blorp. Ugh.
Kanon-san! Yamete! Yamete!
Having stuck his fingers completely into his chest, up to their base, he slowly pulled them out in exactly the same way. The fingers he pulled out were stained a sticky, solid, deep red color, and there was even a thread hanging. Ah. I don't think Dorin is trying to bully you, it was just a joke. Has the profile changed? Does it say something different about Kanon? I am so confused. No, it's the same. Ah, okay. When the scientists cry. Oh, yeah. Oh, the fingers were all the way to their base, covered in deep red.
Ne, 全然大した傷じゃないでしょ?
Please don't do that with Kanon's voice. I am so scandalized by now. No. Just then the door opened vigorously and Shannon appeared. Even after she saw Kanon stained with fresh blood, her impregnable expression didn't falter.
やあ、姉さん。どこへ行っていたの？僕が既得だというのに。一体どこへ？
ボイラー室に行ってきたの。探し物があって。それより、確かめたいの。あなたは本当に、カノン君。
It was only natural. Everyone believed he was Kanon, so they couldn't understand the meaning of Shannon's question. When they looked, they noticed that Shannon was holding a handkerchief in her hand. It was filthy and looked like she had wiped up some trash or dust. And while holding that, she approached Kanon and drew close to his legs.
なんだいそれは。
クモの巣を拭き取ったハンカチよ。
なんでそんなものを。
カノン君なら平気だろうけど、もしあなたにとってクモが天敵だったなら嫌うかなって思って。
やだな。僕がどうして雲を嫌うの。
ごめん、試すね。
シャノンさん。
When Shannon brought that handkerchief close to Kanon's thigh, something happened in an instant. It happened all at once. The human eye couldn't have followed it. Kanon jumped back like a wild goat, fleeing from the thing Shannon was holding. And his arm drew trails with some kind of afterglow that flashed purple. They were 3 beautiful purple trails drawn in an arc, and they were traced across the throats. That's what I was afraid of. The throats of Nanjo and Kumasawa, who had been tending to him. And Nanjo and Kumasawa's throats had opened like gaping mouths, and it was the very instant before the blood was about to start spewing out. The 3rd purple trail should have traced across Shannon's throat, but Shannon wasn't there, because Genji, who had been behind her, had wrapped his own arm around Shannon's neck and pulled her back. This all happened in an instant. The instant Goda tried to think fast in an attempt to understand the scene, the frozen moment in time shattered. Oh, man. Blood spewed forcefully from Nanjo and Kumasawa's necks, which had been torn open. Oh, God. Still mid-jump, Kanon wall kicked off a picture frame that had been hanging from the wall behind him, springing forward just like a cat and aiming for Shannon's throat again. But Kanon's target once again disappeared from in front of him, because Genji had pulled Shannon again and the 2 of them had fallen onto the ground, keeping flat to the floor.
いい反射神経だ。この老いぼれ家具が。
Ay, ay, ay.
Goda!
Gora wasn't an idiot either. Even if he couldn't fully understand what was going on, he at least realized that if this Kanon wasn't seized, his own life would also be in peril. He sprung at Kanon with his huge body, pushing him up against the wall with his weight and physical strength. Okay, I don't like Goda either, but he's not a fat ass. The tips of the fingers on Kanon's right hand began to trace out another purple trail. And when he raised that blade hand up, aiming to strike at Goda's back, there was a loud thunk. Because Kanon's raised blade hand had been pinned to the wall, he couldn't tear his palm away from the wall. Sticking out from it was the knife Genji had thrown. Under normal circumstances, it should have been surprising to see someone as old as Genji handle a knife so skillfully. But in this abnormal space, no one paid it much mind.
Genji-sama, これを。
Genji took the handkerchief with the spiderweb stuck to it from Shannon, and he approached Kanon, who was pinned to the wall by Goda's massive body and the knife.
やめろ。それは近づけるな。やめろ。やめ。
When Genji pushed the handkerchief up against Kanon's face, there was a sound just like the one you hear when you set meat on a red-hot iron plate. Of course, the smell was the same too. What? Why is that on the of course? Oh god. As he was burned and inflamed, festering in filthy red and black, and cried out, In his death throes, Kanon's body burst open and scattered. It was almost as though a balloon filled with gold leaf had popped. The entire servant room was completely buried under a storm of gold leaf. No, a rabble of gold butterflies. Those butterflies began to softly fade into nothingness, as though dissolving into water. No, into the air itself. And afterwards, all that was left was the three of them sitting on their behinds, stained with blood. However, not everyone was just stained with blood. Some of them were lying on the ground, vomiting blood themselves.
Kumasawa! Nanjo sensei!
A slit so sharp that it looked like it could cut your finger if you touched it was opened wide, causing large amounts of blood to keep pouring out. Oh,
何だったんだ。いや、今のは。
ゴーダ、怪我はないか。
私は大丈夫です。しかし、私たちは何を見たんだ。何があったんです。私はあれを確かにこの手でこの壁に押し付けていたのに、その私が何があったのか理解できない。
Goda looked at his own hand. The bright red blood left from his scuffle with Kanon definitely remained, and yet Kanon was nowhere to be seen, because he had disappeared. He had turned into gold butterflies and scattered. Goda kept screaming alone that he had no clue about what was going on. Shannon sobbed in front of Nanjo's and Kumasawa's remains, and Genji watched over her, silent as always. Ay, ay, ay. Hmm.
南條先生と熊沢さんが一体どういうことなの？
ああ、シャノン、無事でよかった。君に何かあったら僕は。
庄司様。
ジョージ君、少し静かにして。あなたたちの目の前で殺人が行われたんでしょ。犯人を見たの？見ないの？
それが何と説明すればいいのか。源氏さん。
私たちにも見たものをうまく説明できません。
確かにそれは私たちの目の前で起こりました。私の目の前にいた。だけれどあれは何だったんだ。私にもわからないんです。
何を言ってるの？あなたが出会ったのは昨夜から所在不明の魔女ベアトリーチェか、行方不明になっているカノン君かのどちらかしかありえない。男か女か、それだけでも答えられるでしょう。
ローザおばさん、少し落ち着けって。目の前で二人やられりゃ誰だって混乱だってする。ゴダさん、源氏さん、焦らなくていいぜ。何があったのか順を追って話してくれ。
それが何を私は言えばいいのか。
Dr. Nanjo and Kumasawa-san had been killed. We understood that much, and it seemed that it had occurred in front of their eyes. But even so, they spoke awkwardly. They admitted that they had definitely seen the crime with their own two eyes, but when asked to explain what they had seen, their mouths went suddenly shut. I could understand why Auntie Rosa was irritated and losing her patience.
シャノン、君は見たのかい？南條先生が襲われるところを。
はい。
僕に教えて。分かることだけでもいい。一体何があったの？
勝手口に来たんです。
そうです。勝手口に誰かがやってきたんです。そして誰だろうと私は扉を開けました。
勝手口に誰か？それは誰？
最後まで言わせてやれ。それから
そいつは血まみれで大怪我をしていました。私たちは使用人室に運び、すぐに南條先生が手当てをしました。 とても深い傷でした。
だからそれは誰のことなの？
わからないんです。確かに最初はそうだと思っていました。いや、今でもそうだと思ってるんです。でもあれは一体わからない。わからない。
In a manner that didn't match his large body, Goda held his head and scratched at it. I didn't have a clue whether he was confused because he couldn't remember, or whether he was confused because he had seen something terrifying and couldn't accept it. And Shannon looked the same way. If she let her guard down, what she had seen just a short while ago would quickly melt away like a daydream, and she wouldn't even be able to remember what she saw. That's what she looked like. Only Genji looked composed, as usual. So the questions were naturally directed at Genji. But even Genji had to press some time to gather his thoughts before he opened his mouth.
Genji-san, あなたは見たんでしょ？勝手口に来たのは誰？
はじめ、私たちはその人物がカノンであると信じました。
ほら、やっぱり生きていたでしょ？私の推理は正しかった。
はじめはってことは、後にその認識は変わるってこと？
はい。その後に起こったことは口では説明できません。南條先生と熊沢を殺し、そして姿を消しました。その時、彼は間違いなくカノンではありませんでした。
そうなんです。源氏さんの言う通りなんですよ。口ではとても説明できない。
君も同じ意見なのかい？
はい、私も同じことしか申し上げられません。
If we interpreted what they were saying favorably, it meant that Auntie Rosa's conclusion had been correct from the beginning. Kanon had appeared from the back door in the kitchen with a serious injury. Then he had been taken to the servant room and cared for. Then something terrifying had happened. Since these people couldn't imagine that Kanon could have pulled that off, they had started to suspect whether that really had been Kanon. Is that how things are? In other words, this meant Kanon had appeared. No matter how confused they were, no matter how they muddled their words, that's what it meant in the end. So had Kanon indeed used some trick to escape that room while it was locked? No, that doesn't matter anymore. The real problem is that Dr. Nanjo and Kumasawa-san were killed. Auntie Rosa had claimed that Kanon was behind this from the very beginning. No matter how confused they became and no matter how much they tried to deny it, they were halfway saying that it was the truth. But even so, for some reason it felt like their awkwardness couldn't be explained just by confusion. What had they seen? Like they said, had they really seen something unexplainable with words? Auntie Rosa, having decided that she wouldn't be able to get any more out of them, concluded her questioning, and said that she wanted to check the two bodies. I was also interested in that. Even if these people didn't have a clue what was going on in their confusion, if those of us who hadn't been at the scene calmly looked at the bodies, we might find something. But it was a little surprising that Auntie Rosa was also concerned about the bodies just like I was. Even at this point, I still wanted to expose the culprit and the truth myself, if we could find any clues. But Auntie Rosa should have been different. Hadn't Auntie Rosa's plan given a higher priority to staying safe than to finding the culprit? I couldn't really see why Auntie Rosa wanted to check the bodies so badly that she would deliberately leave our fort in the parlor.
みんなで一緒に使用人室に行きます。全員一緒に行動すれば安全よ。マリア、落書き遊びはおしまいになさい。
おお、落書きじゃない。ベアトリーチェの問題を解いてるの。おお。
ベアトリーチェの問題？何のことだよ。俺にも教えてくれよ。
ローザおばさん、マリアちゃんも連れて行くんですか？
It seemed that George Aniki had some resistance to bringing Maria to the bloody crime scene. The profiles, okay. Let's see. Yes, they have changed. Died in the servant room, his throat slit by a sharp blade or something similar, but this alone isn't enough. This alone isn't enough, okay. Died in the servant room, her throat slit by a sharp blade or something similar. Finishing touches yet to come. Does that mean? But taking into consideration the fact that Maria would be left alone here, it would surely be much safer if we took Maria with us. In the end, it was just Aniki's irresponsible humanism. We decided that all of us, including Maria, would go to the servant room. Alright. So... here we are. And the investigation commences. Right. I think this is where I would leave it tonight. I know we would be cutting the stream a little bit shorter than usual, by like 15 minutes or so. But I am really tired. I'm barely holding it together, which is also the reason why I didn't stream with the camera. And I swear there are moments when there's like a little bit of silence and not much is happening in between the scenes, where I can catch myself almost falling asleep. So I would kind of, yeah, I think it's a good place to do it, do a save here and pick it up on Thursday. Yep. All right. Thank you so much for joining me tonight and for the nice exchanges and a little bit of banter in chat. I don't think there was any bullying intended. And I hope the pets have been reassuring enough that we're all friends here and it's all in a good spirit, okay? So take care of yourselves, rest well. Oh god. I know I'm projecting my own need for sleep onto everybody, but yeah, do that. Sleep like the dead, thank you. I will. I'm gonna upload the VOD and I'm literally gonna go crash after that. Yeah, I appreciate you all. Let's keep going Thursday with hopefully a much more awake me and a visible me. Until then, I hope your week progresses nicely. And yeah, we can still chat in the Discord here and there where I manage to see the stuff you guys post and reply. And yeah, we'll see you again in the same formula Thursday. Take care, night. Thanks once again for the lovely times.